us now to talk more about it is America First Policy's advisor and former CEO of CKE Restaurants, Andy Puzder. Andy, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here, Maria.
Your reaction to the CFPB's failure to investigate Wells Fargo, what were they doing?
Well, look, I think it's a problem with all of these Dodd-Frank agencies, the Dodd-Frank legislation in general. It really doesn't do what it was supposed to do, which is regulate these large banks to try and prevent financial problems. In fact, the fines that Wells Fargo paid totaled for all agencies totaled about $185 million in a quarter where they made $5.6 billion. So it's not really a very big punishment. What Dodd-Frank does, what this agency does, they hurt the small banks. They hurt the community banks. I got to believe that if a small bank did what Wells Fargo did, they'd be out of business now. So the law is defective. Mulvaney's right. That agency has too much power. It's unregulated. It's not responsible to any other branch of government as it should be. I would hope the courts would strike it down. I think this is the agency's a disaster, and I'm not surprised by the result.
Andy, it's Dagan McDowell. To quote the great Maria Bartiromo, the reason the economy is firing the way that it is and growing north of 3% is because of this rollback in regulations, because the stranglehold on business is over, according to this administration. How much do you think is related to the economic growth? How much of that is related to this big rollback in regulations?
A tremendous amount. If you look at the different agencies, the different independent organizations that measure consumer confidence and confidence in the business community, they all shot right up after the election. It wasn't a pre-election event, it was a post-election event. And when businesses are optimistic, they invest. When consumers are optimistic, they spend. And we're seeing the results of that in the second and third quarter with 2 quarters of 3% plus GDP growth, which we haven't seen for years. So I think Maria's absolutely right. It is deregulation. You know, I don't know if you followed this much, but there was recently a report out that said the Federal Register's page number has been reduced by 32% in the first 9 months of the Trump administration. Reagan reduced it 33%, but it took years. He's going to be the most deregulating president in history, and we will continue to see the results in the economy,
right. They joke,
particularly if we can get tax reform.
They joke in Congress that the number of pages that President Obama increased is equivalent to 15 King James's Bibles. No, really, that's the joke in Congress, Michael Jones.
Yeah, I think it's the actual regulations coming down, but I think it's also the attitude of the regulatory agencies.
Yes.
So, you know, as a small businessman, I can tell you for a lot of the last 8 or 9 years, you didn't feel like your regulators were coming in to help make things better. They were coming in to see what they could catch you at. And they cost you tremendous amount in legal bills and things that were not actually adding to growth and adding to employment. With a new attitude from the regulatory bodies where we're here to see if we can improve things for your employees, improve things for your customers, as opposed to we're here to get fines out of you.
Focus on growth.
Exactly. Yeah. That, I think, is as important as the actual regulations themselves.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I wish we'd start calling them business or facilitators instead of regulators. Maybe they'd feel like they had to facilitate instead of regulate. I think it'd be a big boon for the economy.
That's the mindset. If you feel like your regulators and your government is trying to enable you to do business better as opposed to hold you back, that totally changes the psyche of a large or small business.
And that's the whole point of a 20% corporate tax rate, by the way. Let me get your take, Andy, before you go on Chipotle. Obviously, issues there. CEO and founder Steve Ells announcing his plans to step down. Company struggled to come back from that series of negative headlines, including the E. coli and norovirus scandals. The stock was up by 5% following the announcement. What's your take on this? Can Chipotle get back on track?
Well, it can. You know, it's a very good brand. The current CEO created it. He was a chef. It focused on healthy food and original the way it sourced things. The problem is that they made a lot of people sick. And the way you solve that, the real problem, the reason they made people sick was either their supply chain was defective or the way they prepared the food was defective. Yeah. And you need an operator to come in and solve those problems. And I think the market is perceiving that they'll find an operator to solve those problems, and they could well get back on track. So it's a very positive move, and I think the market had reacted appropriately.
Andy, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Good to be here. Thank you, Maria.
Andy Puzder joining us there. We'll be right back. The chairman of UBS.